defensive play, offensive execution, and overall just buying into this game. BC's got to play better or this season's going down the toilet.
You are Locked On Boston College, your daily podcast on the Boston College Eagles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. This is Locked On Boston College, your team every day. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider, part of the 247 Network. I've been the host of this show for over 5 years. I've been covering Boston College for over a decade. If you want Boston College news and analysis, this is the best place to get it because we have everything that you need here on Locked On Boston College, a free daily Boston College podcast available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. On today's show, we're diving into the Stanford embarrassment. We're going to look at the players not locked in a really damning quote from Reed Harris. The offense, why it went off the rails so quickly, and the defensive issues plaguing the BC and how all of this could be the recipe for disaster for BC. When talking about all of this with Mitch Wolf of Eagle Insider. Mitch, how's it going?
Could be better. It's pretty bad right now. Every once in a while I send you ideas for sponsors for the podcast, and I thought of one recently. You know those rage rooms?
Yes.
I think we could work something up there. We could try to get like some kind of segment there where we, after BC lost, especially, we can go in there and talk about tackling and then take a sledgehammer to a TV or something.
I feel like BC fans could use that as some sort of therapy. You know, there's always those sponsors.
Hey, put one in the stadium.
Right. Put a rage room in alumni. Yeah.
There we go. Now we're cooking.
All right. Mitch and I have ideas. Well, 42-40. That's Michigan State. I was up recording until 3 a.m. last night, and then had to get up for a kid's birthday party around 7 a.m. So my brain is kind of smush, but I'm going to barrel through this episode and give you the best podcast that you can get. BC loses 30-20 to Stanford. I was actually just listening to my preview episode last week, and I was like, wow, totally whiffed on that one.
Yeah.
I think we all kind of did. But what were the issues? Let's start with the defense. The defense looked like Swiss cheese by the end of this game. And, they had issues that were more than tackling. What did you see?
So I will preface this all by saying that I have not watched the tape back yet. I have not looked at a single stat from this game, but the issues were so clear just watching this entire game that you don't even really need to review anything. And so we'll get into here are the problems. If you look at the game, you especially early on, BC's defense is playing okay. They allow a field goal on the first drive. It's first drive, you're getting into it. You make a stop, force a field goal. Cool. Second drive, short field due to a terrible punt. You hold them to a field goal. They have an explosive play, which it's like, okay, that'll happen sometimes. Okay, you can get by it. But they get the ball after Lonergan's, after the bad snap, hit another explosive play for touchdown. Now it's starting to snowball. And you had some nice plays here and there. You had some pressures. You had some stops. You had some guys playing well. And then for some reason in the second half, the run defense just completely collapsed. And I'm not exactly sure why, but you saw BC's defensive line getting moved off the ball, which Stanford they lost their starting right guard before this game. They lost their starting left guard in the middle of this game. So they had to move their center to left guard and play somebody else at center. And they were still getting pushed against BC. Guys were not in the right place. The tackling was awful. And that's just inexcusable, especially and I know we talked about how BC has gotten these issues fixed in the past. It was worse than it was the week before. So if you want to use that as a indicator for why it happened, okay, sure. Like, again, the coaches said that they practiced more tackling. The players said they practiced more tackling. Whatever they did, it didn't work because everything was significantly worse than it was against Michigan State. And again, like, Michigan State is a more athletic, more talented team than Stanford. Regardless of what happened in this game, when what happened in the last game, I think we can all agree that that Michigan State is more talented than Stanford is because, again, like they had a few good plays, but BC, a lot of these plays that they had were BC making mistakes and letting Stanford get away with whatever they wanted, pretty much.
Right, and we saw, this was not I still stand by. You watch that Stanford offense, there was nothing special there. Nothing they were doing was anything exotic. They didn't really have any big players on that team, and still BC struggled. So this is the second week in a row of this. Last week we wrote it off as Aiden Childs being able to do some special things. This week we watch and it's like, what is going on here? This was way more than an Amari Jackson injury. This was way more than a Syer Torrance injury.
Mm-hmm.
Is this fixable?
I don't know, because this is like, if Stanford was one of the worst teams in the Power Four and BC basically couldn't hang with them for the majority of this game, then what does that make BC? They're one of the worst teams in the Power Four. And again, like, you watch the game back, okay, the defensive line is doing okay. They're doing some interesting blitzes, some interesting pressures, and they're even like winning some one-on-ones, which should be happening because Stanford's offensive line is depleted. And you kind of expect, okay, BC has going back at corners because of injury. They might get open for a play or two. Okay, that's fine. But there's just too much missed tackling. Guys are just getting beat by, again, these are Stanford's receivers. They're not, I don't think they're really anything special. Like you get open for a play. Okay, that's good. You can get open for a play. But they're just not in the right place. They're letting guys get open too easily. And again, like, I haven't watched the film back and I haven't like looked at the numbers of what coverage they're using, but whatever it was, it wasn't working. So whatever distribution of coverages they're using, it's not working. And looking at the last two games, Tim Lewis is still very man heavy, still very blitz heavy. Going into this game, I believe BC was number one in the country for how much they used man coverage, and they were third in blitz rate. I imagine those numbers were pretty similar in this game, which it's like, okay, maybe we need to reevaluate our approach here, because this is not working against it. Sure, it worked against Fordham. Great. It's not working against real teams. And even, again, Michigan State is decent. They have some flaws. Stanford is BC, obviously, but they're still a pretty flawed team. BC has a lot, obviously the ACC is down this year, looking at their results across the board from this past weekend, but they've got much better teams coming down the pipe, and they need to be ready to play them and not look like this.
And Bill's the buck stops with Bill O'Brien. It obviously, he's the head. He's going to figure this out. And I do appreciate that he was at least honest. He's not trying to shine a turd. He said after the game, we're not a good football team right now. Print that, write that. We're going to work harder to be better. Hopefully we improve. We got a long way to go. And
yeah, I think that's something at least you can appreciate about Bill. And I think he said something about the offensive consistency. He's like, I don't know what to do. I have no idea what to do. And I don't take that as I do not have any answers to, make an offense more consistent. Like, those answers are tried and true across, decades of football. But it's like, hey, like, we've been trying to do a lot of stuff on both sides of the ball, and the stuff we've tried has not worked to this point. Like, on the offense, we'll get to this a little later, but actually I'll say all this stuff for the offense. But on defense, with the cards they've been dealt in terms of lack of defensive line talent, I mean, if you look at this game, compare this to last year, you really see how much Donovan Ezraku and Cam Horsley did for this defense, especially in run defense. You look at the downgrade of talent there. I'll say it, maybe I whiffed on Davion Crouch, because he has made some plays here and there, but he has been struggling and not being able to be as much of a playmaker. That also might be on the defensive line not being able to keep him clean enough. Owen McGowan had a pretty decent game, actually, but I think he's still inconsistent and a somewhat limited player. And the secondary, we'll stick with the safeties, because the cornerbacks are kind of another issue with the injuries. But the safeties are probably the biggest culprit in this team for missed tackles. And as fun as we said this group could be with how fast they play and how hard they hit, they're not getting anybody down to the ground for tackles. And that is the name of the game. This is blocking and tackling. Those are the two things you need to do in this game. And BC's defense is not holding up their end of the bargain in the latter.
Yeah, it was the run by Ford.
It was the big run by Micah Ford right after the 4th and goal.
Omar Thornton looked like he was on skates.
Yeah, that happened to him once or twice. It happened to Carter Davis once or twice. I mean, KB Price is still having issues with this. So whatever drills they did or stuff they did in practice to work on tackling, maybe we throw those out and try to find some new ones, because whatever that didn't work. And we'll talk about some other issues that are related to that later. But you got to, you cannot, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. Therefore, it would be insane to keep doing what they've been doing in previous weeks and expect it to improve.
I was about to just go on this rant about how I feel one thing that Bill O'Brien whiffed on was the transfer portal. Because I feel like on the defensive side of the ball, none of did Jason Hewlett even play? I don't remember even I'm
honestly not sure. I thought I saw him for a bit, but also maybe I'm conflating him with somebody else.
But you saw Chris Marable out there, and I mean,
I will say, I thought some of those guys made individual plays. You saw,
but I was going to say Ela Boykin made a big play.
Yes, so he did. Marable had a really good pressure up the middle. So there are, again, and especially in the first half, there were instances where good stuff was happening. But then in the second half, it just snowballed and nobody could do anything, which was very frustrating. And also, and this isn't a transfer portal thing, but like Edwin Kalingi had a very strong game. A lot of pressures, getting in the backfield, making plays. And apparently Quintavious Hutchins was a probable injury report this week. I felt like we didn't see or hear anything from him in this game. And again, I haven't looked at the stats yet, have not watched it back. I'm going off basically a gut reaction here. Compared to where he was the Michigan State game, where he did make some big plays, that was not a part of this game, I believe.
I was going to ask about this, but we'll save it for segment 3 with players not locked in about the time zone, because I do wonder where that ended with halftime. But we're going to talk about the offense in just a moment and why things started off really strong, but just went completely off the rails quickly. We'll be back in just a moment. Quick question for all you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit in front row of your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yes, I said it, hat. For me, it would be the game. These aren't just hats. They're the same vintage style hats worn back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They still go for the same price they did back then. When you use code Locked On, you will get this vintage hat for $16.99. It also comes in maroon too. I think you can see it in my background. Head to thegamescap.com right now. That's thegamecaps.com to get this exclusive hat. Grab your team's classic bar retro circle design and use code Locked On for an exclusive discount, because legends wear the game. Caffeine just got a flavor upgrade. 5-hour energy shots deliver tasty caffeine in 17 bold flavors. Each 2-ounce shot packs the caffeine of a premium 12-ounce cup of coffee, plus B vitamins and nutrients with 0 sugar and 0 crashes. What I love most is how portable they are. Big taste, tiny shot. You can take it anywhere and get that boost when you need it. I love the flavor of them, but I also love when I'm running, if I'm doing a big race, my 5-hour energy is a must-have in my pack for the morning. So I use 5-hour energy constantly. Enough with the boring, flavorless caffeine. It's time to give your caffeine a flavor upgrade with 5-hour energy shots. Get the favorites you love, or be bold and try something new in store and online at www.5hourenergy.com or Amazon today. This is Locked On Boston College. I'm your host, AJ Black of Eagle Insider. Thank you all who have made Locked On Boston College your first listen every day. If you have not done so already, you can find us on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Just crank us when you're, getting ready for the morning. 20, 25-minute podcast. I think you'll enjoy it. Now, we're talking about the very, very disappointing / embarrassing loss against Stanford. You got to call it what it is, right? We give you the positives when it's positive. We be realistic when it is. And this is realistic right here. Saturday's loss it goes down as one of those games that goes in BC history where you go, how did you lose that? And they did. Now, the offense started off looking okay. You had Dylan Lonergan making some great passes. Reed Harris was making, those big catches that we've starting to get to see more and more out of him.
Montanatron.
Yeah, Montanatron. And then the second half happens and BC gets shut out.
Not even really the second half. Like, it starts with those turnovers because it's 17-6. BC's driving, looking pretty good. They're moving the ball in both ways. They're hitting on big explosive passing plays. They're moving the ball consistently through the air on shorter passes, and they're running the ball decently well. Are they breaking off huge explosive runs? No, but they're picking up 5-6 yards a clip, which is something they have been struggling to do. You're also seeing more diversity in the run game. You're seeing more attacking outside. You're seeing diversity within these play calls. And then there's the bad snap from Dwayne Alec to Dylan Lonergan. And Dwayne Alec was benched in the second half for Michael Krauts. And by that point, the game was kind of weird. And I don't think we had any bad snaps after that. But then it was basically a moot point by once you get down 10 points. But this was a problem we've seen with Alec for the last few weeks. There have been off-target snaps since the Fordham game. And frankly, when those keep happening, you're just waiting for disaster. And it happened in the worst way possible. And it completely flipped the momentum of this game. And if it doesn't happen, I think you can make an argument BC does win this game because they had all the momentum. They were moving the ball well in offense. They were, if not in the red zone, very close.
They were about to go up 24-6.
Exactly.
That would have been it.
That changes the game completely, especially with BC. I'm not exactly sure the time there, but BC gets the ball out of the half. So they could really open up that lead and game changes completely. So that's a big problem. And I think I talked about it last week where I thought they should have gone away from Alec because those bad snaps were just disaster waiting to happen. And then they did. Yes.
Yep.
And then the next drive, you know, Dylan Lonergan throw his first interception season on just an absolutely terrible pick six. Now, it's a bad decision because that Jeremiah Franklin's covered. There's the guy coming over from the side. It's also a poorly thrown ball. It's not accurate. It's way to Lonergan's right, Franklin's left, and allows Colin Wright to pick it off. And you're deep in your own territory, so it's a pretty easy interception. If I'm looking at that play, I'm pretty sure that's the same spot concept where you get the short little hitch over the middle, you get the corner route behind it, and then the flat route to the outside or swing route from the running back. They've run that play or that concept 15, 20 times this season already. And Lonergan has hit that. He has not really thrown the corner route behind it a lot. He has thrown the underneath routes a ton. So I feel like you could tell Stanford was waiting on that. And every team has their plays that they run. They run them repeatedly, and there's concepts they like. There's concepts the quarterback likes, so they keep those in the offense. But you have to hit different routes, otherwise teams are just like this play. The teams are just going to wait on it. We saw this happen with mesh wheel a bit last year. They hit mesh wheel this time in this game multiple times for pretty good gains. So, you know, that's still part of the offense because it's a pretty easy play that can allow you can move the chains with it, or you can hit huge explosives off it, which they did. And then after that, you really once Lonergan throws the pick six, credit to him for coming back and leading the field goal drive. That was at least somewhat good. But after that, it was just all downhill. And part of it is Jude Bowery going down with an injury. Not really sure what that is, but I'm pretty worried about it given his injury history. And you saw the offensive line really crumble from that point. And you're down two starter. You've removed one starter. You've lost another. But I mean, I've been a guy I liked Ryan McCow. I liked some of the stuff he's done. Again, once we watch the tape, and I'm going to watch the tape, and I'll probably come back on later this week to talk more about it. We can talk more specifically, but I just wanted to gut reaction because there's a few very salient themes with this game that really don't require you to go that deep into it. So then you start seeing the pass protection breakdown, which had been stellar up until this game. And that's a credit to Lonergan for being able to identify blitzes, get the team in the right protection. Maybe this is on Krauts for not being able to recognize blitzes as well. And that's why Alec was out there. So it's a trade-off, and it's a tough one to pick because you're either risking turnovers or you're increasing the likelihood of negative plays with sacks if you're not in the right protection. And we saw Lonergan in this game, to his credit, get outside the pocket, scramble a bit. So he can create sometimes, which is good to see. But eventually Stanford started blitzing and they were just able to overwhelm the offensive line and the pass protection. I will say also, Turbo Richard had I might have to, when I rewatch the tape, we'll see how it was later in the game. But early in the game, he had a lot of great blitz pickups. And that's just not something he did a lot last year. He was not on the field a lot on third downs. Obviously, that was a lot of Trayshawn Ward's game. But he was very good at that. He was almost always in the right place, really took to it aggressively, taking on his man. So that was at least encouraging to see for the future. But once you get to that point and, you know, Stanford scores again, BC moves the ball well in that drive down to the one, and then Turbo has another fumble at the goal line. And of course, BC can't get a bit of a luck, and it goes in the end zone for a touchback. Next play, Mike Ford, 75-yard run. Next play, touchdown. And just everything sucked. The air is sucked out for BC. They're not having any good feelings about what they're doing on either side of the ball. And at that point, the run game is like, even if you want to say, oh, like they have to get rid of the run game because you have to score quickly, especially as time decreases and then you're down by 10 points. Running the ball at that point is moot. You can't really rely on it. It's not going to change the outcome. So you have to pass the ball. When you have to pass the ball, the defense can tee off on you as pass rushers, and then that's when you lead to more sacks. It just becomes cyclical. So again, there were times in this game where BC's offense was moving the ball very well. You saw the run game have some success. You saw it starting to get going, and then just everything flipped on that bad snap and the turnover off it, and then the pick six. And so I think once we watch it back, we're like, okay, there is some nice stuff we can take away from it, but it's just a cacophony of errors. And again, like this is something that we've seen with the last game. It's like whenever BC has a bad play, it's just the worst. It just becomes the worst play possible. And I even like after that fumble by Turbo, I said, well, at least they didn't get a scoop and score on that play. And then it effectively did in the next two plays with Micah Ford ripping off that huge run.
Yeah. So my question for you, something fans have been asking is, do you think Turbo needs to be benched?
No, I think they need to work with him on ball security. And I feel like he's probably just pressing, trying to make plays. I think the first one against Michigan State was kind of just a bang bang lucky play. This one was probably more him like, we got to make a play, so I'm going to try to go over the top and reach the ball. And it's a risky strategy. That's all. It's risky. So, and again, like I don't mind the decision to go for it there. I don't hate the play call. When we watch back, I'll see what it was specifically, but it's tough because it is 4th and 1, and you do just kind of want to say, like, if we can't get a yard here, we don't deserve to win. But also, like, maybe we try something a little more creative than just a handoff up the middle, especially when that's something that you have not been able to consistently do in your regular offense. Now you're in the red zone. Try something where you get Lonergan on the move, maybe, or whatever. So when we're returning to Lonergan, I think watching him in this game, I think you saw Stanford do a good job of confusing him again, where he's having trouble processing post-snap coverage rotations. He's staring down receivers too much. He's having passes bad at the line because of it. I think I like clocked this a little bit, but I was like, maybe it's just, and I thought it got better in the Michigan State game, and now it's kind of reverting. But his release is a little slow, which I think is leading to some of the batted passes at the line. And that's just something I think you improve with reps. So maybe that's just something you'll have to work through. But the staring down receivers is a bit of a problem. And again, the struggling to process these complex coverage rotations, that's what's leading to him holding onto the ball longer and then taking those sacks or making ill-advised throws because he doesn't really understand where defenders are or where they're going.
All right. In a moment, not Lewis Bond, Reed Harris makes a comment that really opens some eyes. We'll talk about what he had to say in just a moment. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Pick is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player projections, and you can take your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I love it. Checking the projections like Josh Allen for more than 270 passing yards or Saquon Barkley for more or less than 1 rushing touchdown. And the best part, even if one of your picks misses, Prize Picks invented the flex play, so you can still double your money. Download the Prize Pick app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in your lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONCollege for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel on a Sunday after a BC loss. I go in there, find that NFL action, Sunday night football, find a 3-way parlay, anytime touchdown. I was looking at Justin Jefferson, passing yards for J.J. McCarthy, and then maybe the spread for the game. So easy to use, and they always have special deals that you can find on the app. It's easy to use and you get your money the same day, quick and easy on those when you win. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The Charitable Irish Society has been part of Boston's history since 1737, making it the oldest Irish society in the Americas. With deep ties to Boston College, its leaders and members continue a proud tradition of service. Today, the society is still living its mission, raising thousands of dollars each year to help immigrants in need, Irish and non-Irish alike. Last year, their support helped a family from Northern Ireland who faced a medical crisis and couldn't cover rent and bills. You can be part of that impact. Membership is just $75 a year, and it goes directly to helping families when they need it most. And mark your calendar. The annual Silver Key Dinner is coming up October 29th at the UMass Club, honoring Archbishop Henning. Get your tickets to the annual Silver Key Dinner and join the Charitable Irish Society today at www.charitableirishsociety.org. Locked On Boston College, AJ Black, and shout out to everyone who's made Locked On Boston College a first listen, and all of you who are everydayers who made Locked On Boston College your daily routine every single day. Thank you all who listened and maybe are laughing at some of the things I said about Stanford last week because they sound kind of silly now. But let's talk about Reed Harris's quote, and I have it right in front of me right now. Reed was part of the press conference, which unless I wanted to not get any sleep, I did not attend because I went live right after the show. Right after the game. He said, where is it? I just lost it.
I will say one thing while you find it is we got to talk about Steve Adazio's pronunciation of Dylan Lonergan. And how it got worse as the game progressed, which was very funny. And again, I did think Daz did a great job of calling the game apart from that. And his canned segments pre-planned ones are kind of whatever. But I thought
Cringy.
like the stuff, him like doing the breakdowns, like blocking and stuff was fantastic. Like,
Yeah.
he's really got a knack for this, and it's really cool to hear him actually break down tape.
I think if he wasn't the former head coach of BC fans would probably enjoy him, but I think
BC fans
everyone's
would want him to be the head coach of BC.
Probably. But like, yeah, I enjoyed him. The dudes thing was a really cringy, but everything else, like, I thought he did fine. But anyways, I got the quote right here. He said, Reed Harris, everybody has to keep their mind in the right space. And looking back on these 24 hours, I think it's noticeable that some guys weren't as locked in as they needed to be. And that probably translates to the game. That definitely translates.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
So this is where I'm very concerned about the state of the program. And part of this goes back to Bill O'Brien, he having only one road win in his season and a third or a quarter, which was the first game, which was on the road against Florida State, who ended up being absolute butt cheeks. So how much do we really put stock in that?
Yep.
And he hasn't won a road game since then. And you could argue that they were really close last week, and then they were. But this week they were not close. And I think you would be silly not to admit that having to fly to California on Friday to then play a game at 7:30 local time, 10:30 Eastern, that you silly not to say that didn't play a role. It had to have. And it's a role for anybody. If you fly across the country, you're going to be jet lagged for a day or two. And I think that probably showed up the most when we got to the second half, when BC's guys' body clock was midnight, 12:30, 1. Like, you're just going to be naturally more tired. And this isn't the NFL where you can like fly out 3 days in advance because it's your only job. Like, these guys do have to go to class, and yes, you can go to class virtually. You can do all that, but at the end of the day, like, they're practicing at BC, and they got to practice or walk through at least the day before the game. So that was all well and good. It clearly didn't do anything, but that's a very concerning thing for him to say. And I appreciate him saying it because, for a redshirt sophomore who, again, he is basically a 2-year starter, and this is second year starting, but for him to come out and say that, and I will say call out his teammates, but not publicly call out anyone, is a real sign of maturity. So I think that's good to hear. But, and again, I don't know who he's talking about specifically, but I think he's right that there were guys who were clearly not locked in for this game, who did not take it seriously. And on the one hand, the coaches do need to stress that, like, every game matters. Like, it's not the NFL where everybody's equal, like on the pretty much the same equal talent playing field, but this is a conference game. This is a opponent that you do have to respect. And granted, we look silly because of how bad we said Stanford was, but maybe the coaches didn't do a good enough job of helping them shut out that noise. And that could be true, but at the end of the day, you can only lead a horse to water. You can't force him to drink. And I thought that Michigan State would be a wake-up call for these guys. Maybe it wasn't like, oh, like, we were there, like, we should make a few more plays, we could have had them. And then they're like, oh, this is, and they might have thought this game like we did, where it's like, oh, it's Stanford, like, we'll be fine. And it was looking good until it wasn't, and then everything just flipped in a second. And this is the margin of these things are one at the margins, where it's like, if you mess up, and you mess up a few times in a row, it can really snowball on you. So that's very concerning, and they've got now a bye week to stew on it, to mull it over. And I hope that there's going to be some hard conversations, some meetings between the coaches themselves, between the coaches and players, the sports staff, whatever.
Players and players too.
Yeah, players and players too. Yeah, like guys have to hold each other accountable. Like, the captains have to hold this team accountable. So again, like, this is really bad. This is an embarrassing loss on the level with Northern Illinois in 2023, UConn in 2022,
Kansas.
2021, Kansas in 2019. I think you could argue Syracuse in 2021, but that's with the quarterback situation, you can kind of throw it out a bit. But still, this is a really bad one. So they have the bye week. You have now 8 games. I think there's a world where you can say, okay, we're throwing out the first 3 weeks. You guys didn't play well enough to win 2 of those games. The one you did was against an FCS team. You vastly, you guys weren't talented than them. Great. You have 9 games for the rest of the season, and we need to win a lot of them to get to a bowl game. So, and again, like I said, the AC looks down this year, but it's going to be a tough schedule. Like, these are not. This was, like we talked about going into the season. You need to make your layups, and they missed this one. This was a game they should have won based on talent alone, and they did not. And it was mostly self-inflicted wounds that they could have fixed had they done more / better preparation and taken it more seriously. So you have to respond. You have to come out and you have to win these next games if you want to make this season mean something. If you want to get to a bowl game, I don't even think we can even consider any other type of postseason accomplishment, because a bowl game at this point is the goal. You have to win 6 of these next 9 games, and there are winnable games there, no doubt about it. But this team is on the edge of a knife. You have to play better. You cannot make the mistakes you're making. And we got to 30 minutes in this episode, and we haven't even brought up special teams, which now it's, well, again, Luca Lombardo, great season. That was the best field goal I've seen from a BC kicker since 2013 with Nate Freese. Unbelievable. Everything else is bad. Seamus Florio had a really bad game. Isaiah Ferris, it was the best return of the night, but was the dumbest decision I think I've seen him make so far this season, where he was basically had a guy in his lap when he was fielding that ball. They tried VJ Wilkins on kickoff return, quickly pulled him, then just had Bo McCormick go out there to do the touchback signal where he spreads his arms out in T. And then eventually they did bring on Andy Quinn to do some kickoffs, which went for touchbacks, which was fine. But yeah, I mean, great. We have a kicker for field goals and extra points, and we have a kickoff specialist. And after that, it's all booty cheeks again. So there's a lot that needs to get fixed in this bye week.
I need to get into the Isaiah Ferris thing before we go, because it just drives me crazy. Because it every single punt, I don't know, he waves them all off, and then it turns into an extra 15, 20 yards or 10 to 15 yards. It's playing
blackjack with a guy next to you who has never played it before and has no idea what the rules are, where it's like, you are messing this up, because like, you don't know what he's going to do. I almost, before he fielded that one, I was like, I wonder if he's like Jameis Winston, where he like needs LASIK because he can't like see the ball or something. Because he was like when he's like going to run to the ball, and like, I'm like, where? And then the ball ends up completely somewhere else. I'm like, what is going on here? And then he tries to field that one. I'm like, what are you doing? There's a guy right there. And again, he fields it and miraculously, and then makes actually a decent return out of it. But that's terrible process. Like, it was just such a very avoidable mistake that could have really flipped this game as well. Because I could be wrong, but I feel like that was the drive that ended in the bad snap. I could be wrong on that. I have the drive log play-by-play behind me, but I'm not going to look at it because we're running out of time here. But yeah, I mean, again, we thought special teams were looking good, and now it's basically we're back at square. We're almost back. We're at square 2 because BC can make field goals, and they might switch to Andy Quinn on kickoffs, and maybe they need to switch to Andy Quinn on punts too. So I don't know.
Yep. Well, I go back to, before I end on my Matt Turn Isaiah Ferris thing. Watching it practice during the summer, there were 6 or 7 guys working on punt returns. You had Bo McCormick, you had Turbo, Lewis Bond, and I get you don't want to put Bond back there because the last thing you need is to him get lit up and you lose your best wide receiver. But you had Cam Martinez, Nedrick Bolden. You had all these different guys, and it was out of Matt Turn's mouth at one of those press conferences that he said that I picked the guy that makes the best decisions. We're now week 3 of this. What best decisions were you looking for? Because I don't think those are very good decisions at all.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Sorry, I had to say it because his quote was just like, as I watch Isaiah Ferris chasing after punts and them sailing over his head. I don't know. What are we waiting for? You have other options. I've watched them play. Try something. Just do something. But anyways, I'm getting myself worked up again. Mitch, it's bye week. We can breathe a little bit. Where can people find your work?
You can find me at Mitchell T. Wolf, WLF on Twitter. Again, I am going to watch the film. I'll probably come back on here to discuss some of it later this week, so we can talk about if there are things that can be fixed, what can be done to fix them schematically moving forward. So we'll review this game, and then the tape reviews will be out this week. And then, yeah, we'll maybe do some projecting forward. This is such a weird time to have a bye because I feel like for the last, 5 years, the bye has always been like the second week in October. Every year, like clockwork. Yep. And this is like the first time in forever. I'm like, it's not that. And it's 3 weeks into the season. And
kind of perfect timing for it.
Yes.
Right now.
Like
they need it.
Yes, they do need it for injuries and for trying to right the ship, because this is really bad. This is a bad loss. And it's, if you want to throw blame on me for saying this team was too easy, then fine. Yeah. I guess I underestimated them. Yeah. Yeah.
Mitch and I don't play though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Everyone says we don't play football. We're talking about football, and it's up to the guys to execute and the coaches to execute. Go yell at them. All right. Sorry. So tomorrow's show, The big news of the week is there's already been 2 coaching firings. We've seen Brett Pry, who it's fired from Virginia Tech after going undefeated against BC, but seemingly couldn't beat anybody else. He's gone. And then the bigger one is Deshaun Foster. So let's start talking Carter Gooding again. So I was hoping after watching UCLA get pasted by New Mexico that I'd be on Monday talking about Carter Gooding and hey, BC just beat Stanford, but now we're not back into that again. And he just got offered by Georgia Tech. So that's interesting. But we'll talk about Carter Gooden because I think people want to know about it. And more going on with BC here on Locked On BC. Mitch, thank you so much for coming on. And we'll see you all again tomorrow for another episode of Locked On Boston College. Your team every day. And please, no more 11:30 starts. 10:30 starts. Thank you.